Broskis, Brosif, Broham. Darkwing Blast is such an incredible set. It has completely changed Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that there's going to be some awesome cards and some awesome strategies. I talked a little bit more about it in depth in yesterday's video. Today, we're going to be focusing on some of the most popular and powerful strategies ranked on a tier list post Darkwing Blast. Now, of course, if I were to make a tier list with every single Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, we would be here for hours. So I just decided to pick some of the most popular and introduced strategies. But of course, if you guys want to see a rogue tier list, a tier list of popular decks that may not be as strong, go ahead and let me know, and I'll show you how they work against some of the top decks. Now, I'm not just putting this tier list together based on emotional drama. I've actually played a lot of Darkwing Blast format, have talked to a lot of competitive players, and have noticed a trend. It's kind of one of the perks when you don't have a job. And from what I've observed so far, some of the biggest players inside of the format are the Bestial cards. Who would have known being able to banish cards in the graveyard during either player's turn is good? Cosmic Cyclone, boy, that card is amazing. Nibiru the Primal Being, just in case you want to get intimate after your 5th summon, and Eradicator Epidemic Virus. So this time around, I actually have 6 different categories, and they're going to be rated just slightly different. S+, S, A, B, C, and Arby's. I think just about every single one of these strategies has a place inside of the format, but I'm going to be telling you exactly what I think about these decks going against the top meta and going against some of these powerful cards that will be played a lot. Let's start off with Amazonas. Amazonas starts with A, so it goes into Arby's. I'm sorry, guys. We had no chance in hell for this deck. Now, I would be the first one to tell you, if there was somebody that I wanted to crush my skull with them thighs, it's the Amazonas monsters. Unfortunately, it's just not good. When the Amazonas strategy best play consists of making Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess as your disruption card, in 2022, you know you struggling. In a highly competitive event, I would not recommend you play an Amazonas deck, losing the cards like Nibiru the Primal Being because you special summon too much, or having your field spell card banished with Cosmic Cyclone is just not a good time. On top of that, your deck's not that great right now. On the flip side, the support for Blackwings, boy, we in there. Look, dog, I don't care how much Blackwing hopium you think I am. A solid B tier is exactly what Blackwings deserve. It is not by any means of the imagination of deck that is going to destroy the meta. Blackwings can make a huge board that consists of Nibiru the Primal Being, but if you don't got the Nibiru, you better watch out. My first assessment of Blackwings is that I think it's going to be a really fun local deck, and probably a well-skilled player can win a regional with it, but the odds are stacked up against you. Not necessarily a bad deck, just summon Blackwing Full Armor Master, forehead. Crystal Beast, I actually had my reservations about. I thought it was a terrible deck, but I think that B ranking is pretty solid. The price point for Crystal Beast is pretty phenomenal. All you have to do is buy 3 copies of the structure deck and you have a pretty decent deck. Not as good as the Albash structure deck was, but not necessarily bad. If you are a player that is trying to summon all of the Crystal Beast monsters, I would tell you to forget about it. But if you are playing a Conclave Control, basically a Crystal Beast deck built on the Conclave Crystal Beast card, then you might have some success. This strategy does have negatives against Cosmic Cyclone, but it does dodge the Bestial monsters, and for the most part, this control version dodges Nibiru, as well as being able to play powerful cards like Dimensional Shifter, which is really good in this format. And who would have guessed you get Dimensional Shifter as a common in the structure deck too, so that's pretty good. Branded Despia with the new support is easily a S tier deck, but to tell you so truthfully,
Branded Despia was a top tier deck before the new support with Darkwing Blast.
this is one of the very few dark strategies that actually gains more than it loses with the Bestial cards. A fat L with Branded Despia is that when you use Brandon in red and your opponent activates a Bestial, I'ma miss you, Guardian Chimera. I'ma miss you. In the arms of the angel. The good thing is that if you targeted Despian Tragedy, you get a search, so not necessarily terrible. Another thing that I love about Bystial and Branded is being able to fusion summon into Albion is very much a thing, because not only can you send Lubellion, the Bystial monster, from your deck, you can then use Lubellion to tribute off the Albion, which will allow you to search a branded card with your Albion, and you can get another branded card with Lubellion. Branded Despia is actually ridiculously powerful inside of this format. I think it's one of the better decks, hence the S tier. Eldritch, my boys, are going to be some pretty bad losers in this format, but taking A tier is not necessarily bad. Having your Eldritch cards being banished with Cosmic Cyclone can sometimes feel worse than a Harpy's Feather Duster or a Lightning Storm, but I think the biggest thing is having your Eldritch the Golden Lord being banished with a Bystial monster. They do that enough times and you're not playing Eldritch. But the good thing about Eldritch is that it becomes a little bit more powerful with the Bystial cards. Also, being able to use Hakero to be able to banish your opponent's light and dark monsters when you don't have any allows you to prevent them from summoning their Bystial monsters, so that's a plus. This deck is in a really interesting spot, but I'm gonna give it a nod over the B tier because Eldritch is a really powerful deck that can always adapt and play the correct floodgates. Now, I was able to talk to a lot of Exosister players for this upcoming format. They're kind of interesting. I mean, I wouldn't call them neckbeards, but I mean, they do have Reddit accounts. I would put Exosister as a strategy in the B tier. Probably the best B tier deck on this list so far. The biggest reason why is because Nibiru the Primal Being and not having a Dryer inside of the house is probably Exosister's worst nightmares. Setting up the correct board becomes really hard to do, and even with the Bystial monsters touching the graveyard more than financial debt touching our wallets, I don't think that that's enough to keep Exosister afloat. Your best going second cards like Mystic Mind and Necro Valley have also been put on notice with cards like Cosmic Cyclone. Floowandereeze, I'm still gonna give this the nod as an S tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I mean, personally, I hate this deck, but I mean, I'm not gonna deny its greatness. Let it be great. Bystials and Nibiru does nothing to Floowandereeze, and they are loving it right now. Furhire got some really nice support, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I've looked at Furhire Donna a couple of times. I'm confused. I'm like really confused. And before you guys judge me, 90s kids used to look at Lola Bunny, and I'm pretty sure you Zoomers look at Sandy from SpongeBob. Hey man, I'm not going through your search history. I'm just telling you what it is. Furhire is another deck that ends on a nice Nibiru with no way to counter it. Also weaknesses to cards like Infinite Impermanence, Effect Veiler, and for some reason still Ash Blossom. I think it's gonna be in the C category, a solid locals deck. Really nice cards from Darkwing Blast though. Goaty, I don't have a lot of information about this deck, but from what I've seen so far, Goaty is a C tier deck. It's like every time Konami has an opportunity to give us a TCG exclusive that could be really good, they shoot us in the foot, like B-Troopers. We may get one more wave of fish support that would be really beneficial, but for right now, I'm not really seeing how the Goaty aspect can actually be good inside of this format. Other than having them banished is a good thing for you. Kashtira is really solid as an engine right now. Kashtira Fenrir is extremely powerful, but the Kashtira cards themselves, they don't end on a lot. The good thing is that this deck is Nibiru proof because you just don't summon enough monsters. Rank 7s have always been suspect. They're not necessarily bad cards, but this deck doesn't really have a great going first board, and as a going second deck, you know, it might not be bad. That's why I'm putting it in the B tier. I'm gonna make a really bold take. I'm gonna put Labyrinth in the A tier, which is really high for players that have never seen a Labyrinth deck. Now, I could just be simping for Lady of the Labyrinth, but I think that the trap cards that are being provided with us in Dorama Canon, as well as some of the other previous trap cards like Fiend Griefing, which is really good against the Bystial and Tier Limit matchup, as well as the Sprite matchup, as well as Despia. It's good against a lot of things. Mathmech is in a very solid A tier spot. My biggest problem with Mathmech is that hand traps are not as powerful as they once were. But yeah, Mathmech still does Mathmech things with the Super Fractorial on your opponent's turn to Trishula them. Notorias for right now are going to be in that C tier. We currently do not have the Ishizu cards, which makes the Notoria strategy a lot more powerful, ending on a Notoria Beast and then getting clapped up by monsters that are just stronger than Notoria Beast is not the move. Playing ninjas seems like a solid way to end on a Nibiru token. This deck does a lot of summoning, a lot of Nibiru tokening. I really hate to say this because like Appaloosa, Isol brings so many great memories, but anytime your deck relies on Isol, Two Tails, and Noble Knight, it's not looking good. Ninjas do make some really awesome boards and is a fairly consistent deck. I think the C tier, these tiers, they're not bad decks. I just would not tell you to play them at the highest level of events. Paleozoic has reinvented itself as a Paleozoic Tearlament variant, using cards like Needlebug Nest to send Paleozoic trap cards to the graveyard, as well as getting Tearlament cards. I think this is a very solid S tier, if not S plus deck. Paleozoic Dynamiscus already had so much synergy with Tearlaments when you combine that with very powerful trap cards and are able to use cards like Fiend Griefing to send Backjack to continue on your Paleozoic plays or get into Needlebug Nest. I think you enter that dangerous territory of Tearlament being a very powerful control deck that can also summon some really huge monsters and go for a game fairly quickly. To keep it so 55th Street with you, this might be the best version of Tearlament. I'm just a little skeptical because I haven't seen enough testing. Finally getting Pendulum to the board. Where exactly would I put Pendulum? I think Pendulum, I would put them in S tier, but I think that there's a few things wrong with Pendulum. First is, do you want to end on an Nibiru the Primal Being token? Second is that Cosmic Cyclone is still really good, but I think that the Draco Pendulum deck is a very solid deck, and I may be undervaluing it in the A tier. It might be S tier. Being able to dodge the Bestial cards is already a plus, and then still being able to summon some of the most ridiculous boards. This is one of the better combo decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it solves the old problem of Pendulums being able to make a board and having no cards in hand. The Draco Slayer Pendulum deck actually winds up with 5 to 6 cards in hand, as well as a negation board. But I'm still going to be skeptical towards the deck because I have not seen a foolproof Nibiru combo just yet. I think that that's what's going to separate this from the A tier, from the S tier, and possibly even S plus right now. Pendulum players literally have to have double the brain cells of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh community, which has proven itself to have a collective brain cell of 1. So I congratulate you guys. Prediction Princess is like the support. I'm telling you guys, the support for these strategies, yo, the support is actually fire. Like, I love the support that's introduced. But from what I've been observing from all of these strategies, it's just not enough right now. Possibly some more support in the future, or maybe some off support will push these decks a little bit higher. But I think that Konami is actually going in the right direction when it comes to sets, being able to fully support these strategies, give them new life, and give them a purpose. Make no mistake, guys, if you're not an Arby's, I think any of these decks can win at any given time. Amazonas. People think that Punk is dead because of Chaotic Ruler to Chaotic Magical Dragon. The biggest hit to Punk was actually Christian Hockley Fabrics. In Hockley Fabrics we pray. I would still put the Punk strategy in the A tier, and the only reason why I would put it in the A tier instead of a little bit higher, possibly the S tier, is because hand traps aren't as powerful as they were. Granted, Nibiru the Primal Being and DD Crow and possibly even Droll Logbird are in a whole different class by themselves. But your hand traps like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, Ash is trash. And again, if you guys want to see a hand trap tier list, then go ahead and let me know. I'll be able to break down the sauce on what I have learned from Darkwing Blast. Rockets are actually going to be our very first S plus Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. Yo, Chaotic Ruler to Chaotic Magical Dragon, that card being banned was, whoo, that might have been a good thing. Rockets are literally the legit one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Despite the mechanics that are being used against them right now. Rockets are a combo deck that have been notorious to be Nibiru proof, also being able to use the Bestial cards to their fullest potential, seeing that the Bestials are dragons and this deck is dragon. It is easily one of the top contenders inside of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game and doesn't really care about some of the other cards that are being ran right now. I think Runic as a pure deck is going to struggle bus. There are a lot of ways to be able to counter Runic Fountain, Cough Cough Cosmic Cyclone, which bypasses the Runic cards. But then there's also Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which is being played to counter Mystic Mind and of course Runics. Scareclaw actually got some pretty decent support. I'm going to go ahead and put it in B tier. Scareclaw Tricard is still one of the most ridiculously underrated Yu-Gi-Oh cards right now. I think that players will have an easier time than last format using Scareclaw, especially with a lot of the new cards that we can play now. On the flip side, Sky Striker just seems to get pushed further and further away from this format. The Bestial monsters banishing, being able to banish Sky Striker Ace Ray, that's like a death sentence. Imagine still being in the Ray is Bay category and then they go, huh, Bestial event. This can all pretty much change when we get Magnificent Mavens and new Sky Striker support, but for right now, I think that it's a C tier deck. Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is not a good Yu-Gi-Oh card. Don't think that that's gonna save you. Despite losing Rodentonen, Sprite is still one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Super S plus tier, right there with Dragon Link. This deck still seemingly felt like as if it lost nothing. It's still a really powerful deck, and now getting Sprite Sprined from Darkwing Blast, it's gonna keep on trugging. Keep in mind, this is also one of the other few decks that makes Nibiru look really silly and doesn't really care too much about Cosmic Cyclone as some of the other decks will. Sword Soul is a solid B tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck. If you play Sword Soul correctly, you will wind up on a board that consists of a Nibiru token. Floodgates also won't be your savior here. I already told you we've seen enough Cosmic Cyclone inside of the format. The good situation that we're in is that we don't play a lot of light monsters until they Bistio or Ashina. Make no mistake, the new tier element Lulu Keros is amazing, allowing you to be able to Solemn Warning cards, negate the special summons of your opponent's monsters, and then cheat a snack that come right back. Tri-Brigade did get one new card from Darkwing Blast, though I'm not really on the fence about the card being great. Regardless, I do still think that Tri-Brigade is a fairly powerful strategy. And the biggest reason is because Tri-Brigade has always had the utility to play around cards like Nibiru. Cosmic Cyclone is still fairly easy to play around, and the Bestials, I mean, light, dark monsters, we play Earth. Also, cards like Eradicator Epidemic Virus don't really mean much when you play a total of 10 spell and trap cards. Tri-Brigade is looking in excellent shape, just like how I would make another bold take and say Virtual World is too. The Cash Tier cards actually help Virtual World to a whole nother level. I should have a deck profile up about them. It is crazy what Cash Tier does for Virtual World, as well as the new Volo Doom, which allows you to be able to shuffle in tier limit cards or cards that your opponent wants to banish for Bestial. Cosmic Cyclone does suck, but I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Nibiru can be played around inside of this deck. It's pretty good. And lastly, we had to put it because Adventure Token did get support, guys. I didn't think that it was a deck, but it is a deck. It is Arby's. Brody, you really gonna run around with that Adventure Token deck? You go play it? Just don't tell me to play it on a duel challenge. And that is all that I have for the meta tier list post Darkwing Blast. I want you to let me know, you want to see that rogue tier list? You want to see that hand trap tier list? Also, where did you think I got wrong with these certain strategies on the tier list? Did I rank some too high or too low? I'm really excited to see what you have to say. Of course, go ahead and check out more Cali Effect content for more awesome content, big dog.